Okay. Is there any topics that I might not know about that you want to
Yes,
teach?
that is right.
Okay, from hands-on therapy.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I chose a simple name for my business.
And you're certified in these right here?
Craniosacral therapy is, well, I didn't get my certification for it yet.
Okay.
There's different levels of certification,
Sure.
and you apply for it. But it's not necessary to have that.
Okay.
No, I
So
have
you
taken the
actually-
classes.
What we, sorry to interrupt you, but what we would consider you as a practitioner of these modalities.
Right. Yes,
Okay.
and I've taken craniosacral 1 and 2 and somato-emotional release 1 and 2 continuing education classes.
Myofascial?
Myofascial release, I've taken the continuing education also.
Okay, and a couple times during the interview, probably
Shawna
deLetrig.
Yeah, you got it now.
Right.
All right.
Well, let's have a good show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Are we ready, Frank? Good evening and welcome to Metaphysical Concepts. Today we have Shawna deLetrig with us, and Shawna owns and she's a practitioner at Hands-On Therapy here in Missoula on, and what's the address there?
131 West Spruce.
West Spruce.
It's right off Higgins.
Okay, and Shawna is a practitioner of several different healing modalities, and could you give us a background on the healing modalities?
Well, for one thing, I'm a licensed physical therapist with 19 years of work experience.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, I have taken educational classes in craniosacral therapy, in somato-emotional release, myofascial release, therapeutic touch, reiki, and qigong.
Wow. And I've been in your office, and we've had several discussions. You actually combine the different modalities to best practice on an individual person.
Yes.
And can you, first of all, before we go any further into the modalities, can you explain to me what your belief in how diseases or how dysfunctions in the body are created or where they come from?
From what I have experienced in myself, from what I have observed in my patients, and all the reading that I have done, I have come to the conclusion that dis-ease is a lack of communication within the body, or confused communication within the body. That optimal function of the body depends on optimal communication between all the different systems working together in harmony, in rhythm, in a polyrhythmic setting, so to speak, from the minutest cellular level to the organic level for each organ function to the entire gestalt of mind, body, spirit. Everything has to be able to
Balanced.
communicate and to be balanced out. Yes.
So in our past conversations, we were talking about like something that happened to somebody, a trauma that happened to them when they were 16 years old. Although it might not have been a physical trauma, it could have been an emotional trauma or an intellectual trauma. Actually comes up later in life as a malfunction or a dysfunction in the body.
Any kind of trauma with an emotional impact that is overwhelming at the time, which oftentimes is the case in early childhood. You know, as we progress and become older and more adapt to life, more independent, we have more tools to deal with trauma. But especially early childhood trauma, but also something as dramatic as rape or a severe accident of some sort that was life-threatening or appeared to be life-threatening can cause a disruption of the process of working through the trauma, that it gets lodged in the body without being fully resolved. The body has some natural means of resolving trauma that you can observe in animals, you know, that they play dead, they start shaking, and eventually when the shaking has worn off, they're fine. Right? They run away or fly off, depending on what critter it is. But for human beings, oftentimes we are not in a position to fully complete the traumatic recovery process. And so some of the residual, I'm not sure if it is chemicals or emotion or if the two are really totally combined and one dependent on the other, which some scientists are now concluding that that is the case. But in any case, the body has the memory, the body holds the memory of this accident or incident or trauma in a certain location in the body until you are emotionally, psychologically, physically capable of processing what happened at the time, sometimes through a memory of the actual incident, sometimes through something that is more metaphorical, that is symbolic and has the emotional equivalent of what happened, and leads your body to conclude, to bring to full circle this trauma recovery process.
So again, just to go over that briefly, an incident, whether it's physical, but it's always emotional, you saying?
The emotional component is what we usually have a harder time dealing with. In our society anyway, there is not a lot of room for emotions to be expressed, to be processed.
Played out.
Right. Usually the response to any kind of trauma, whether it's losing a parent or being injured or being raped or being mentally, physically, emotionally abused in some other way, usually our response is, well, suck it up and keep going.
Right.
And that is not a very healthy response. We don't leave a lot of room for grief.
And bury it.
We don't leave a lot of room for rage. We don't have a safe way to explore and express the rage and the anger.
To effectively bring it to a conclusion at the time.
Right.
So
or soon after.
So our body actually makes up for that, you're saying? So and let me ask you this, each individual has a different, say, place in their body that they hold on to things like that? Or
absolutely.
Is it a different situation, finds a certain place in the body?
Right. For
So
each situation, it is unique. For each individual, it is unique.
So,
and only your body knows where that location is.
Yeah, so it could be muscular, it could be held in a muscle for one person, whereas it would be held in the kidneys for another person?
Correct.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
And let me, so in combining, and from what I've noticed of your practice, you actually combine craniosacral therapy with somato-emotional.
Somato-emotional.
Yes. And
some
in the
physical therapy techniques.
And what you do is you combine those, and from what I get, you're actually there's a little intuition going on in there, a little sensitivity on your part that actually helps you find that spot in a person's body. And from speaking with you in the past, it depends. Every situation's different.
Right.
On how to release it. In some situations, confronting the situation would be the way to deal with it, and in another situation, it would be just putting applying a modality to it, or like Reiki, and then let the person come back around to it.
The person is always in charge of what is happening. I'm not pushing for a release, because I'm not in a position where I can say, okay, now you're ready to release this.
Right.
Because I don't even know what's there.
Sure.
Your body knows, your body guides me. The person on the table is in charge, can also stop the process at any moment. If they're not comfortable, if they're not ready, they can stop the process and go back to simply the symptomatic treatment, simply dealing with the physical symptom at the time. The way the body shows me where to go is through the craniosacral rhythm, which is a rhythm that originates apparently from the brain itself, that expands and contracts at a rate of 6 to 12 times per minute, thereby pushing the bones of the skull apart and allowing them to contract again. And that movement is translated through the spinal cord and all the nerves exiting from the spinal cord into the extremities as well. So throughout the entire body, you can feel this craniosacral rhythm of expanding, contracting at a nice steady rate, and then you can tell if there is a discrepancy between right and left side, if there is an imbalance. Is one side going more into extension than the other? Is one a little bit weaker or more shaky, more uneven than the other? Is it above or below a certain point? How does it feel above the hip or below the hip? So there are certain listening stations, as we call it in craniosacral therapy. And depending on what you find with your hands, simply through the motion detectors in your hand, called the kinesthetic sense.
The motion detectors in your hands, because I'm telling you, this is one of the very few times that I've heard this explained, actually, where you actually, if you go to, say, an AMA doctor, he's hooking you up to these machines to find out the neurotransmitters and whatever.
Yes.
And so the intuition I was talking about before is very prevalent in your practice.
This is actually not even intuition yet. This is a learned sense that everybody has. But just like, let's say, wine tasting, I can barely distinguish between a red wine and a white wine when you blindfold me, but somebody who has the experience and the love for good wine, that person can tell you the vintage, the year, the whole area, down to, okay, it was right in this winery that this wine was produced. I can't do that because I don't have the practice. But with my hands,
these are your taste buds right here?
These are my taste buds. Actually, more in the joints. The joint sense that picks up the motion. And that's what I've trained over the last 19 years, to detect differences in even very subtle motion. The intuition comes in when I don't even have to go to the listening stations anymore, when my hands just want to go to a certain area, boom, right there. And that's actually how I got into more of the hands-on treatment, besides having been trained in a time and at a place where we were taught in physical therapy school that these are our most valuable tools, because they give us feedback right in the moment about the whole quality and quantity of movement and muscle joint cooperation and so on and so on. So doing more with my hands, I found that oftentimes, long before I took any of these classes, my hands would spontaneously go to areas when I had a new patient and I would touch them there and they said, how did you know I was hurting there? That's the spot that's been sore for the last 2 weeks. So I can't tell you what exactly that sense is, just that my hands wants to go there.
Well, for the sake of this interview, let's call it intuition.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and when you get a client in, you usually start with craniosacral and go from there. Can you expound on that, please? I
do a general evaluation, just looking at the body, at the symmetry of the body, at any kind of weight shifts, signs of pain that show that you're avoiding certain movements or that you can't do certain movements. So I check out, through the conventional physical therapy method, what your abilities are in terms of motion.
Joint motion or muscle motion?
Both. You can't move a joint without the muscle working on it.
Okay.
And at the same time, the joint cannot function without the muscle giving and allowing for the movement.
Okay, so after the craniosacral...
I do that first. I do
okay.
a general evaluation. And then I check out the feeling of the what's called fascia, the connective tissue from head to toe. And I start at the heels just with a very light pull on the heels, trying to detect where there's resistance against the stretch. And that gives me a certain idea where to start with my treatment. No, and then I work from there on up, all the way to the head. So I work basically from heel to toe, from head to toe, toe to head, more or less.
From the bottom to the top.
From the bottom to the top.
And the fascia is
Yes.
what? The outer...
Fascia is connective tissue.
Connective tissue.
It is the kind of a glassy film that surrounds and enfolds every single cell in your body, head to toe, uninterrupted.
Okay.
It provides continuity through the entire body. If you took out every living cell in the body and just left the fascia, which is also a living cell, but I mean every other cell besides the fascia, you would still have a complete outline of the entire body, including muscles, bones, nerves, organs, blood vessels.
Let me ask you this, is that the, say, the communication road of the body as well?
It's one of the communication roads, yes.
Okay.
No, another one is the nerves per se.
The nervous system?
Yes.
Okay.
Another one is the endocrine system, where glands produce hormones, and the hormones are channeled through the blood system, the circulatory system.
Right.
But there is a lot of communication happening through the connective tissue at microelectric levels.
Magnetism.
Electromagnetic currents, yes, that they're now finally being able to map with the finest type of skin surface electrodes. And interestingly, they found that much of the electromagnetic flow in the body corresponds to the meridians that the Chinese have used for thousands of years.
Wow, the meridians for acupuncture?
For acupuncture, yes.
So,
acupressure.
So basically, when we're saying we have a buildup or a place in the body where not enough energy is at, that we're actually talking about magnetism?
That is our idea right now. The Chinese have the idea of qi, which is still different from electromagnetism. It's not exactly the same.
Qi is what, life force?
Qi is life force, and
Soul
I have
force.
not found any Western equivalent to totally come to an expression or explanation of qi. It is life force. It has to do with breath. It has to do with the electromagnetic flow. But per se, qi does not have substance, and qi is not measurable in terms of our technical devices at present time, but you can experience it.
Right. Technical devices is qi, the substance of an aura.
An aura can even be photographed in certain ways now.
Or seen by certain individuals.
Right.
But and here I am trying to find a definition of qi.
Right.
Is it the substance in an aura? Is it the electromagnetics of some
It's, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Again, we can't find it.
I have experienced the feeling of qi, and what I love to do is dancing with qi.
Wow.
Feeling the energy flow in my body and then letting that energy flow from within move my body.
Express itself freely?
Yes, so it's a spontaneous, ecstatic dancing that comes from within, from qi moving me.
Wow.
Rather than in my mind saying, now I'm going to do this and now I'm going to do that.
It just happens.
The qi moving is something much more subtle and much more gentle.
Maybe on another show, can we get that on film?
Sure.
It sounds beautiful.
Actually, every time I'm going to a Drum Brother concert, you can see it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A Drum Brother concert. When is the next one, by the way?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
No,
Okay.
I don't know.
I know you're in contact with those guys.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the modalities.
Right.
We started out with an evaluation, and you go to
Find the areas of restriction in the fascial system. which is also usually in an area of energy restriction. You know? In saying I combine the methods between the physical therapy methods and between the Qigong and the craniosacral therapy, myofascial release, and so on, you have to be aware that in reality, every time we touch somebody, every time we talk to somebody, every time we look at somebody, there's an interaction of energy.
There's an exchange.
Right. So you cannot touch a person without receiving and giving energy. It's not possible. So I'm simply aware that I'm doing that, while other practitioners of conventional physical therapy may not be aware of it. But it's happening anyway. And most of the people who have done any kind of hands-on work have the experience. They may use different names for it. They may have different explanations for it, but we all have the experience of something very subtle, energy flowing between
sometimes
people.
It's subtle, sometimes it's more subtle, or less subtle, and sometimes it's more powerful.
Right. The explanation I have for that is the resonance between people.
Would you take that to mean compatibility?
Compatibility, yes. I see the body as a living form of rhythm and music, so to speak. Each atom has its own rhythm, its own tone, vibrating at such high frequencies that we can't hear the music of our bodies. We can't hear the music of the atom or the molecule. But they combine their voices. Each atom combines its voice into the song of the molecule, into the chorus of the organ, into the symphony of your whole body. So if you want to describe the interaction between two people, sometimes you have, let's say, an accordion and a cello, and it takes a little bit more to get the two to get in sync.
I guess so.
While an accordion and clarinet can make fun music together very quickly.
Mandolin.
And a cello and a violin will very quickly, go in sync and just be in harmony and
so
sound beautiful together.
Yeah, right. So the compatibility of one magnetism with another, and we actually see that and Barbara Brennan was really good at explaining that in dealing with auras. When one person has a certain aura and another person has another aura, and when they combine and they're compatible, it multiplies the aura.
Right.
And there's something very beautiful.
From a strictly scientific point of view, have you seen the graph of an electric current? A nice sinus wave, and then you add another sinus wave, and depending on how they add up, they can either enhance each other or cancel each other out, depending on how they fit into each other.
Sure. Isn't it amazing how we both said the same thing in different
Exactly.
Different explanations.
Right. And that's what I find in holistic treatment very often, that we're trying to explain the same phenomena in different
words, and
words with different language, with different intellectual concepts.
So to some it might seem that they're actually at opposite ends of the spectrum because somebody's explaining it differently.
Right.
And really they're saying the same thing. Getting back to your practice, what you've become over the years through experience and I'm sure through let's call it personal capability. You actually fine-tune that sensory perception to be able to do that effectively.
I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing now is because I'm extremely stubborn.
Stubborn in what way?
Very,
Let's hear
very
that.
stubborn. When a person did not get better with conventional physical therapy, with all the things that I was trained in, rather than saying, well, there's nothing else I can do for you, go home, take a few more pills, or go back to your doctor, or live with it, I would say, okay, there's got to be something else I can do. I'm missing something here.
That's great.
And that's when I went into continuing education and tried to explore the phenomena that happened when I put my hands on people. You know, when they say, oh, I'm feeling better, and I didn't know why. So, and that way I fine-tuned these
Well,
abilities.
Well, I would
Yes.
call that determination.
Right.
Yes. So, is there one modality you use, you prefer to use over others, or you just listen to the music of a person's body and...
Craniosacral therapy in the advanced form combines so many components of what I am doing that I use that as the explanation for what I am doing. Craniosacral therapy.
That's at the base of it all. That's the foundation of it?
That's kind of the container for what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yes, and it provides me with wonderful colleagues and continuing education classes.
One can never stop
And
learning.
kindred spirits to further explore and further hone these skills.
All right.
And to hopefully help more people.
Can we give your phone number at this time? It's,
Sure.
Shawna's phone number is 550-3890, and call and make an appointment. Now let's get to some of the ailments that that you find most common when people come to you.
Yeah. As I said, all those patients who did not get better with conventional therapy are the ones that ended up on my table. So many patients with chronic pain.
Chronic pain.
Some from accidents, some from chronic malnutritioning, so to speak, of the spirit. Fibromyalgia,
chronic fatigue.
TMJ, chronic fatigue,
What's TMJ?
migraines, temporomandibular joint disorders.
Mandibular joint?
Right.
Now you're going to have to
So,
explain that to me.
the joint that operates your jaw is the one that works hardest in your body with the pressure that you're using every time you chew.
Chew or talk.
It wears out rather quickly, especially since it also contains a disc in here that is being compressed all the time with each time you chew, with each time you grind your teeth, and that's what we often do when we're stressed. We grind our teeth. And so it grinds down on this little disc that's in the joint here.
It's a point of tension.
Right. And you get trigger points in the muscles, and it can cause headaches and ringing in the ear, neck aches, all kinds of symptoms, toothaches. So it's a rather complex
And isn't it,
problem.
it sounds like it would be one that would be actually hard to detect, too.
Yes.
I've been around circles for a while now, healing,
Right.
the healing circles, and I have only heard of that a couple times. Now,
If you talk to dentists and orthodontists, you hear it a lot.
they land on it, but...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, other ailments that come to you, chronic, like headaches?
Headaches, migraines,
Migraines.
depression, even asthma, and other chronic ailments and illnesses. I've worked with cancer patients simply to enhance their own healing capacity, to improve the body's communication system within. The newest idea about how the body communicates is that molecules called peptides are seen as information molecules that are being produced and also received in the digestive tract, in the neuropsychological tract, in the endocrine system, which means all the glands, the hormonal functions of your body, and the immune system. So these peptides are traveling throughout the body, and they're working as a mobile brain, so to speak.
What would bring-
processing information.
Also, do they communicate?
communicate.
Do they send a message as well as receive a message?
They send messages and they respond to received messages. And Candace Pert, who is a PhD in biochemistry, has done some extensive studies on it. She came to the conclusion that these are actually the molecules of emotion. And that's the title of the book
Really?
that she wrote, Molecules of Emotion, where she discloses some of her work that she's done on these peptides and the receptors, which are somewhat like a keyhole to the key, only it's not that static and that simple. Both the keyhole and the key actually are vibrating and jiggling, and they have to jiggle and vibrate again in the same rhythm. They have to be entrained, so to speak,
Balance.
before they can actually lock in. So she has some very interesting ideas about treatments for AIDS and so on that are based on the body's communication system. And she came to the conclusion after 20 years or so in biochemistry that the hands-on modalities, anything from massage to craniosacral therapy to chiropractic, are probably more effective to help the body heal itself than any of the chemicals we can swallow or inject.
You know, that gets back to the old physicians, the ancients, healing with energy.
Right.
Yeah, healing with magnetism, and getting back to nature, herbs.
And to the most spontaneous thing that we do when a child is hurt. What do? Child is hurt, a child is crying, we pick it up, we kiss it.
And we love
Now
it.
hug it.
Right.
We all need that.
Right. Love goes a long ways in healing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
yeah.
probably the most powerful force.
Sure. We've been under the impression around here for quite a while that a man and woman in harmony never have to see a doctor. And they live good, long, healthy lives. And it's even been said with actually proof that, I don't want to go too far into this, but a female doesn't have to go through the change of life. The exchange of life force exchanged properly goes a long way.
Absolutely. And it goes even further than just the communication between partners. It is also shown that older people who have pets generally live longer, healthier lives because there is an exchange of love, unconditional love.
Right.
People who have a great support system in their families, in their communities, have a better chance to recover from cancer and have a better survival rate.
And if we go back to the start of that, we'll probably find that there is less cancer to start with.
Yes.
Yeah, less cancer patients to start with.
Right.
Do you incorporate nutrition in your practice?
I don't have the proper training to give advice on diet and nutrition. What I encourage people is to really be in their bodies, to really feel what is happening in their bodies, to listen closely to their cravings, to their desires. And when it comes to the addictive kind of desires, go down to the root and see what it is that you are really craving. Are you really craving the sugar? Are you really craving the nicotine? Or is it a substitute for something else in your life that you're not receiving, that you're not getting? You know, the sugar addiction. Are you really craving the sweetness of life? Do you feel unloved? Do you feel neglected? Do you feel alone?
Sugar's a crime. You know, we're under the impression around here that sugar should be outlawed.
I don't think so, because regulations like that are not going to change the needs of people. And oftentimes an addiction is a way to survive. Until you have the means, until you are in a situation that will allow you to dig down to the root of your addiction and come to a true healing.
Okay.
But I want to let go of all of these judgments that this is right and this is wrong, No, and this is good for you and this is bad for you, because I don't know what you need at this time to survive. Somebody who's been severely traumatized might need certain addictions simply to survive from day to day. Until they are stable enough, until they are in an environment and are capable to love themselves enough to go to the root, to have enough support to deal with the actual pain where it's originating, and go to the healing from there. And then the addiction kind of falls away. It's not needed anymore. But it is not up to me to judge what is right for you and what is wrong for you, and which crutch you use is still appropriate and which one is not. Your body knows that, and I help you get rid of the crutches when you're ready.
Okay. I didn't mean to portray that I was judging anybody.
No, I
was
understand.
actually judging sugar as a whole. It's very bad for people, and my point is, if it wasn't there, people wouldn't use it.
They would find something else.
If drugs weren't there, people wouldn't use them.
They would still find something else. We do use our crutches.
Sure. Let's hope it would be the love of another person.
And we can do that without outlawing sugar, for example, or, you know, other substances that we don't agree with. I don't think that making laws is going to be the answer, but actually extending that loving hand is going to be the answer.
Okay, what's the answer till then, though?
Extending, each one of us, extending a loving, helping hand as much as we can every day.
That's beautiful. There's one woman, Melissa Hansen from Butte, Montana. I want to read this to the audience right now, that has shown results enough from her treatments with you to say the following. After 5 years of living in pain, I have finally found the power of healing through hands-on therapy with Shawna. I have learned to create lasting positive changes in my life, and I am able to do much more than I ever believed possible. And you forgot to write thank you, because I know she said thank you.
She says thank you every time she comes. She still comes from Butte once a month to do
Really?
treatment with me, yes.
And you have
Yes.
regular folks that come to you?
Yes. Some people come on a more regular basis. Some people come whenever they're on fire again.
On fire, okay.
Yes.
And
Actually, I would recommend not waiting until the fire is too hot, because the form of therapy that I'm doing helps to prevent a lot of the hot fires.
what people find a lot when they go to alternative medicine or alternative the healing modalities is they have a hard time taking care of it. From what I understand, you several insurances, you're accepted by several insurances.
As a licensed physical therapist, I'm accepted by most insurances. Unfortunately, not Medicare.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that one alone.
Yes.
And some of the other things that you are adept in is Reiki, yoga, Qigong, therapeutic touch. Is there any that I'm not getting?
But you're not getting?
Any that I haven't said yet?
No, I think you've pretty much covered it there.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not a yoga instructor. I practice yoga myself. And I apply yoga principles when I teach people the exercises. You know, the yoga principle of using your breath, which is so powerful.
Yes, it is.
And again, listening to your body, starting where you are, not comparing yourself to others, but being gentle with your body and going as far as you can today, because every day is different, every moment is different, and you need to be gentle and loving to your body. You know, that's the most important principle for health, is to be gentle, accepting, and loving to your own body.
And everybody else around you. That helps.
But it starts with yourself. And that's actually much harder A lot of people find it easier to be kind and gentle to other people, but find it hard to make the time and the effort and to find themselves worthy of their own love.
And you advise people along those lines, or help them find that in themselves?
Hopefully, yes. And you teach best what you have to learn the most, so I'm learning in the process as well.
Ah.
Yes.
Anything specific right now?
Just generally accepting who I am without any kind of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Not comparing myself to other people, not comparing myself to the expectations that were placed on me by the previous generation.
Ah.
You know, trying to rise above the conditioning
Right.
that each one of us is exposed to as children, and we
so where it starts,
internalize
yeah.
it. We internalize so many of the values and concepts without even being aware that they're there. And to become conscious of those concepts, becoming conscious of the limitations that I'm placing on myself, and rising above that, transforming that so that I can be more present, so that more of me can be present
Becoming an
in my own
individual.
life as well as in my professional life, which there's really not that much of a chasm between the two anymore. You know, I love my work, so it's never really a day at work. You know, I'm not looking forward to the weekend because I love what I'm doing.
Yes. And let me give your phone number again. Shawna's phone number is 550-3890.
Correct.
And how long have you actually been in Missoula?
Since last June.
Since last June?
Yes.
All right.
I'm still the new kid on the block.
From what I know, I'm not getting that. I thought, it seems to me like you fell right in and fit right in.
So.
Really?
Yeah, I'm still finding my niche.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
I'm still trying to educate the conventional medical establishment that this is a valuable adjunct that does not replace conventional medicine. It does not replace conventional physical therapy or chemotherapy or whatever it may be for cancer treatment, for example, but it is an additional resource.
Works with it?
Yes.
Oh. So can you explain a little bit more of the process? Now, we started out with the evaluation process and went to craniosacral. The last time we talked, it's oftentimes hard for somebody to be taken back to a traumatic situation in their life. And I'm sure every case is different. How does that unfold, though? I mean,
it unfolds completely naturally, actually. I'm not pushing for it. I'm not asking for it. I'm focusing on what your body on the table is telling me.
Okay.
And I apply minimal pressure, about 4 grams, which would be about the weight of a nickel, and then listen to the tissue with my hands and follow along with whatever your tissue is spontaneously doing. Most people are not aware that their body is actually constantly in an inner movement flow. And the more that movement is flowing, the more the information is flowing. When there's a restriction of movement, then the fluids are not circulating correctly, which means those peptides are not circulating correctly through that body part, and the information is not received properly. So there's a lack of information that oftentimes leads to problems. Also, lack of circulation immediately leads to problems. So that is my intent immediately when I put my hands on you, is to improve the flow of blood, of so-called interstitial fluid, which is the clear fluid in between all the cells that kind of bathes the fascia, the connective tissue, and to improve the information flow throughout your body, to assist your body in correcting its own imbalances. And that's where it takes off. usually there is a certain 10-step program that I can follow through the craniosacral therapy that is very systematic in unblocking the areas of the body that are most likely to be blocked. And it's focusing on the deepest tissues inside the body, the ones surrounding and protecting the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord. And so with this extremely light touch and this deep sensitivity for motion, you're detecting any kind of restrictions of motion in the membranes surrounding and protecting and shielding the central nervous system, and you're assisting the body in releasing those imbalances and restrictions. And with the central nervous system functioning properly and the fascial system being assisted in releasing localized tension and dysfunction, then the information flow of the body can work optimally for your type, for your situation right now, and it can heal itself.
Do you find that working on a troubled area automatically or sometimes automatically takes a person back to the original traumatic situation?
It can. It can. I've had one young woman on the table who was barely on the table. I had barely touched her, and it was her first time receiving craniosacral therapy or somatomotor release, and she went straight into extreme physical motion. She did a 180 on my table and had a rebirthing experience.
Is that right?
She went through her birth.
All the way back to birth?
Yes, all the way back to birth.
Wow.
On the first setting, and that's very unusual. It is more common. Yes, very.
Wow.
It is more common that you have a few settings where we're strictly working on the physical, and people oftentimes go into a very relaxed state of mind where they have dreamlike states, and oftentimes it goes just like dreams so quickly that they hardly pick up on anything. Sometimes it's a very clear visual image that comes, or an auditory image, or a sensory where they feel tingling or twitching.
Or the same emotion.
Unusual, yes. The emotions sometimes come up. Sometimes people fall asleep, and sometimes they're talking to me through the whole treatment, and we're talking about their life situation and what's bothering them. And that's okay too. Whatever happens on the table is okay. And sometimes it takes several treatments before there is even the slightest emotional release. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. Some people are very guarded. Some people do it very quietly within themselves and never have a conversation with me about what really happened during the session. I can just feel the twitches and the movements and the releases within the body and the deep sighs and sometimes tears rolling. And if they don't want to talk about it, they don't have to. If they want to explain what they feel, if they want a dialogue, we dialogue. And in contrast to counseling, I'm not making suggestions. No. I'm more reflecting back when the person is saying something, oh, I'm experiencing this or that, then my response would be, tell me more about it. What does it mean for you? Does that have any correlation to what's happening in your life right now? No? So in the more conversational style, people usually get to know me as well, because we often find correspondences between what is happening in their lives and what is happening in my life. Again, this is the resonance.
Compatibility.
The compatibility, and oftentimes being on the same wavelength at the present time. So I oftentimes find that a problem that I just recently worked through comes up for a person on the table, and I'm saying, well, isn't that interesting? That's something I just dealt with over the last few months here in my own life, so it's quite interesting.
Shawna, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
The importance of music and rhythm has come to my attention over the last 2 years. And I'm studying more about that now. As I mentioned before, our body is kind of a symphony of all these different voices, from the atomic to the molecular to the cellular to the organ to the entire body, and the other bodies, our energetic bodies, our mind, our intellectual, emotional bodies. They all have to synchronize their vibrations, their rhythms, and their voices to really make this beautiful music. And I find that music is enhancing what I'm doing. And I'm using that in a practical way right now too, as a premium donation for the KUFM fundraiser.
Oh, is that right?
I am offering a 1-hour craniosacral session accompanied by live harp music by Ruth Singer, who is a friend of mine.
Oh, is that right?
So she's going to accompany the craniosacral therapy with harp.
All right.
And I'm hoping to be exploring more of the combination of rhythm and music. I have my little stereo in the office, and I use, you know, the sound effects, more or less, the synthesized music and nature sounds, and music without distraction to the process as an enhancement to the relaxation effect that is happening there.
Sound therapy as well.
I'm looking more and more into that as I am getting deeper and deeper into the experience of what happens when you deeply entrain with rhythm and with music. Some marvelous things can happen. Yeah.
Balance.
Altered states of mind, balance, healing on a very, very deep level, something that goes way beyond anything that I can even conceptualize, but the experience itself is profound. And I hope to study it more and combine it with what I'm doing to work more with serious afflictions like cancer and chronic illnesses, to bring the body back in balance.
Next time we have you on the show, we'll have to talk about that and your discoveries thereof. I'd like to thank you for being with us tonight, Shawna. It's our intent to provide the most profound information, not just with the healing modalities, but in all metaphysics and in people themselves. And we're proud to have you here. Thank you very much. And I would like to give your phone number one more time. That's
550-3890.
Okay. Thank you again, Shawna.
You're very welcome.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes, it has. Good night. Good night. I don't know how long we were rolling, but that was just about perfect. What do you think?
I think so. I
right.
stuttered a few times.
That wouldn't make it. That makes it